Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Ocrolus Product Pulse. Today, we're really excited to share our latest enhancement for non-QM lenders. My name is Craig McKeon from the Ocrolus marketing team, and I'm joined today by Becca, Seward, Director of Product for Mortgage. So to give you an idea of what we're going to go through today, we'll walk through our bank statement income calculator, its capabilities, and what we've recently enhanced. A reminder to please use the Q&A module to input any questions that you have. We'll be happy to input or answer those throughout the presentation as well as at the end. So to kick us off, I want to show you a version of the old version of the bank statement income calculator. That way we can tee up the reveal of our latest enhancements. But first, let's dig into the why behind the calculator. When it comes to non-QM lending, having a clear, accurate view of your borrower's financial health is extremely important. But it doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. The Ocrolus Bank Statement Income Calculator automatically extracts deep financial insights directly from your borrower's bank statements, giving you a clear picture of their income, their spending habits, and their overall financial stability. You can quickly identify things like or red flags like NSFs or non-sufficient funds transactions, or sometimes large irregular deposits, things that can have a pretty significant impact on your lending decision. The calculator also highlights these details clearly, and it helps you assess financial risk faster and more confidently. Whether you're a retail lender looking to expand your product offering with a non-QM bank statement loan product, or a specialized non-QM lender, you probably are already utilizing the calculator for your underwriting process. This helps to reduce turn times and safely increase loan volumes. So now I'm excited to show you all of the latest and greatest enhancements we've made to the calculator. So if you're at your desk, a drum roll would be great. So here's a preview of our newest version, the bank statement income calculator in a great marketing format. I want to highlight some of the big improvements. Then Becca's going to do a deep dive into the calculator itself with a demo, and we'll answer your questions along the way. So the biggest enhancement you'll notice is the new look and feel of the calculator. We've retained the Microsoft Excel and Google Sheets formatting for usability. We do have in-app dashboard capabilities as well, with an account summary as well as transaction reviews. Becca's going to show those off. They're pretty handy as you're going through and prepping for the calculator. We've also added a book summary page, which you can see on the right. That makes it really easy to print this calculator or save it as a PDF. We've also included new sections to help in the underwriting process, such as a month-over-month large deposit flag and NSF days count to help you identify any disruption in cash flow trends. There's also an easy-to-identify missing statement highlight, as well as any indicators for declining income. And the other big one that is pretty awesome is a top 10 reoccurring depositors, so that you can see depositors at a glance, affecting that borrower. Becca, I know everyone's really excited to see what this looks like in practice. So let's walk through the calculator from an underwriter's perspective, and we can highlight these new features along the way, where they live and how you can use them.
Thank you, Craig. So let me go ahead and share my screen. We'll start by looking at the Ocrolus dashboard. So when operating the bank statement income calculator, you'll first start by creating a book in our Ocrolus dashboard and uploading a handful of bank statements and perhaps other form types that you need to underwrite this loan file. So here I have already a list of bank statements that I've uploaded and a handful of pay stubs as well. To start, you're going to want to navigate to the account summary tab. So this will give you a quick list of insights, essentially, that will give you a sense of the borrower's cash flow at a glance. So I have for Jill Smith 5 different bank statements. And in this account summary table, I can see quick details about the borrower's beginning and ending balances across those 5 statements, what their average daily balance is, things like the days of negative balance, the max withdrawal amount, etc., just to give you key insights on the bank statement details across those 5 statements. I can also see a balance history, which this is really helpful for identifying perhaps irregular transactions, like, for example, a large deposit transaction, where you can quickly see, oh, there was a large deposit that affected the borrower's balance history. And this is certainly something that an underwriter would want to draw their attention to immediately to see what the origin of that large deposit was. We have details around revenue versus expense factors. So while this isn't necessarily a full DTI for a mortgage use case, it can certainly give you a sense of what their spending habits are and what the relative health of their expense versus revenue ratio is. And then finally, we have summary by transaction tags. So transaction tags is really where the secret sauce is born for our bank statement analytics. If I navigate to the transactions page, you will see that transaction tags are listed over here in this column. So as Ocrolus has processed millions of bank statements over our 10 years of operation, we have built what we call enriched transaction tags that are based off of the descriptions from the bank statements. So if I look at this description here, I can see that there are keywords such as Cash App, and we leverage those description words to build transaction tags. So every single time I look through this list of transactions and there is Cash App mentioned, it will be tagged with this Venmo, Zelle, Cash App transaction tag. And if I filter, I can see every single transaction there. Where you want to leverage these transaction tags is when you are trying to build out your revenue formula. So different lenders may deem different transactions or different types of transactions as revenue or non-revenue. And so if you navigate to the settings and go to revenue formula, you have the ability to actually control which of these tags are considered to be income or revenue or not. So a lot of times lenders will leverage this to say, oh, I always want to exclude an internal transfer from revenue, or I may want to exclude, perhaps the Venmo and Cash App from revenue. And so every single time you log in, that will automatically be controlled in this revenue tag or this revenue column here. But you can also control that manually or within bulk. So if there is perhaps a certain depositor, whether that's a counterparty, here we see Block Incorporated, otherwise known as Square, or if there are other counterparties or transactions that you may want to bulk include or bulk exclude, you can filter leveraging the tags, or you can filter leveraging a search feature. Again, if I'm looking at Venmo in this situation, or perhaps Cash App, I can see all of those transactions with that tag. And I can quickly select all of these transactions and choose to exclude in revenue or include in revenue. We reference these features because this is really where you can quickly sort out the specific transactions that you want to include in income in your bank statement income calculator or exclude. You can also leverage each of these columns to quickly filter out some of the important transactions. Like I mentioned in the account summary, there was a large deposit in this bank statement group. So you can filter by amount here, and now I can see this transfer, which was a $30,000 transfer, an irregular amount for this borrower's account. And I can back that out of revenue because we don't want to consider large deposits in our income calculator. If you want to inspect any of the transactions, you can simply click on it and you can see, just like our analyze feature, where within the document that particular transaction was extracted. And again, choose to include or exclude it in revenue. One final thing I'll mention is our ability to add custom tags. More often than not, we are seeing different types of transactions that may be missing a tag or could use a custom tag, depending on the particular borrower, the particular lender. So one example that we've been seeing a lot more of are buy now, pay later services. You may have seen the announcement recently that DoorDash is accepting buy now, pay later, which is interesting. But if you want to back that out of revenue because that doesn't necessarily show up on the credit report, you can create a tag for a buy now, pay later service like Klarna or Afterpay and exclude those from income or just draw attention to them in case they may impact the borrower's ability to pay on the loan. once I'm done sorting through all these transactions, I've gone through all my tags, I've included and excluded the revenue, that's when you will go to the export and click on the bank statement income calculator Excel link. I've already downloaded this on my laptop, so if I come here, I will see the book summary view. So first, as Craig mentioned, we have introduced a book summary print version. Previously, lenders had mentioned that with the old calculator, they wanted to share a copy of it to investors later on in the secondary market. But because of the layout of the Excel calculator, it wasn't very printer friendly. There were page breaks that didn't allow for it to be printed out and shared in PDF format. So we've introduced this book summary overview that includes all of the relevant information that you may want to share about this book to your investor. So for starters, if there are multiple accounts which are broken out by tab, we have one overview that includes all of the accounts. Let's say it's a Chase account and a Wells Fargo account. We have each of those broken out in their own separate tables and include all of the relevant details, such as the qualifying income for that account, the included or excluded deposits, the NSF transactions, etc. We also include on this printout version the list of excluded deposits. Now, you may not want to share all of the included deposits because there could be several hundred across the 12 to 24-month bank statement period you're looking at, but you may want to include which of those deposits were actually excluded for various reasons. Now, if I navigate to the actual account summary page, this is where all of the additional features have been added. So previously, we had the ability, and we still do, to signify what the number of months are that should be included. So if you have a 24-month period, you can dictate that you want to look at 24 months here, or perhaps look at 12 months. In this example, I have 5 months of bank statement transactions, so we've truncated to the actual number of months that have been uploaded. But typically in a bank statement loan for a non-QM mortgage, it's between 12 to 24 months. I have fields for my guideline expense factor, in addition to the percentage of business that the borrower owns. So if I enter in here a 35% expense factor, and I also put in that Jill Smith owns 100% of her coffee shop, that will automatically update all of these tables down below for the standard expense factor qualifying income. Here we have the totals, including the total of deposits, those that are both included and excluded in the revenue formula, and the qualifying income average. We have our standard expense factor calculation, which is driven from this input up here at the top. You also have the ability to use 2 other expense factor calculators. So if you have a CPA or tax preparer form that has told you that perhaps maybe they operate at a lower expense factor than the standard, maybe they operate very lean for their coffee shop and they only have a 20% expense factor, you can input that here. Or you could leverage a profit and loss statement to input the gross revenue and expenses to determine a separate expense factor. All 3 of these were available on our previous income calculator, and they're available here as well. We have large deposits. Previously, we only had one calculation for large deposits, and that was based on the average deposit total across the entire book of bank statements. But now you do have the ability to determine the percentage or the actual amount threshold, and that can be applicable across every single month. So maybe one month they had higher transaction amounts or a higher transaction average, and the large deposit threshold varies. So instead of just looking at one large deposit threshold across the entire book, you now have the ability to do that on a month-by-month basis. And this is dynamic, so if you make any adjustments to this, the large deposit indicator on the list of deposits will be reflected. Up here at the top, we have a new feature introducing the top 10 recurring depositors. So if this particular Jill coffee shop owner has a list of depositors that she works with frequently, maybe she has a merchant that she works with regularly that is giving her income, we will list out the top 10 here. So that could just give you a sense of who the counterparties are that this particular business is receiving regular or recurring income from. Just like before, we still have NSF transaction detection, only now we will actually indicate the number of days where an NSF transaction occurred. Previously, in the legacy version of the bank statement income calculator, we would identify each individual occurrence of an NSF transaction. So perhaps a customer is sitting at the register and they're swiping their credit card multiple times in a row. That could lead to 3 or 4 separate NSF transactions, but lenders only really care about the number of days in which an NSF transaction occurred rather than each individual occurrence. So that is what is different about this new table. We will only look at the number of days in which an NSF transaction occurred instead of each individual occurrence. We are also adding, by the end of this month, a separate section for overdraft fees. While NSFs and overdrafts are very similar in nature, they are technically considered different types of transactions. So we will indicate both the number of transaction or the number of days in which an NSF occurred, as well as the number of days in which an overdraft occurred. Over here in our middle statement overview, we still have the ability to look at beginning and ending dates for each of the statements. We have included totals for that particular statement, beginning and ending balances, as well as the NSF count. Again, this will reflect number of days. While it does not exist in this particular book, we have also introduced the ability to detect missing statements. So if you are looking at a 12-month period and it goes from January to December, but you're missing the June statement, we will flag that in this new table so that you can see that there is a statement missing in that consecutive period. We will also display any declines in income. So if income month over month is decreasing by a 10% or more threshold, this decline column here will represent that total. And finally, over here, we have, once again, the list of all transactions. So this will not display on the printout version, but you can see every single transaction that was evaluated for this bank statement income loan. You can see which of those were included or excluded, and you can also still control that here within the Excel itself. If perhaps you missed a transaction within the dashboard, and you also have the ability to see the large deposits based on the thresholds that we set within this spreadsheet. So this is dynamic. If I change the large deposit threshold over here on the left-hand side, it will automatically adjust the large deposit threshold column here on the right. So we're very excited about all of these new features, and there are plenty more to come as we continue to receive client feedback. But we have acted upon most of what we've heard from non-QM lenders and added that to this feature. And of course, we're excited to continue to drive value for our non-QM lenders who underwrite bank statement loan programs. Craig, I'll toss it to you.
Awesome. Yeah, we do have a couple questions. And as a reminder, you can use the Q&A module to ask additional questions. The first one being, if I were to make an include or exclude adjustment on the transaction page, would that be adjusted here after export as well?
It would be, yes. So that is why we do encourage lenders to start in the transactions page, because this is much more user-friendly than an Excel spreadsheet. And that's not necessarily an Ocrolus limitation. That's just a limitation of the feature functionality of Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. But you do have the ability to bulk include or exclude transactions, or include or exclude individual transactions in this screen. So we find that this transactions page of our Ocrolus dashboard is much more user-friendly to control transactions that will be marked as included or excluded in the Excel output. And once again, you do have the ability to control this at an org level for your particular revenue formula. So if there are specific transaction tags that you want to leverage and say, these specific transactions should always be excluded or always be included, you have that level of control within your account settings, and whoever your account manager is in the dashboard can control and set that for you.
Excellent. For tags that would be happening that aren't within the system that we want to create net new, could you just show the tag management screen on what that looks like?
Yeah, of course. So here we have the revenue formula screen. I'll navigate to tag management as well. So here we can see all of the custom tags that have been created within this account. So we have a handful here that are listed. It's very easy to either search for existing tags, edit or delete existing tags, and or add a new one. So if we want to add a custom tag, again, let's say for a buy now, pay later service, we can add a label, a description, we can tag it with a specific color, and then we can look at the exact terms to include, exclude, with amounts, recurrence, etc. So you have full control over creating custom tags, and then these custom tags and system tags can be controlled in the revenue formula as well.
Excellent. That looks great. I know we have a bunch of fun ones in there in our demo org. Uh,
Yes, of course.
One question, is there a user guide that provides highlights of the new updates? Yes, there is. I'll make sure that's included in the follow-up email. So you'll have access to that. Just a clarification, Becca, on the transactions, would those no longer be showing on the printout? So actually on the print version, we'll show the excluded deposits on the printout, the print to PDF version. All of the other transactions, like the total number of transactions, would be on this page.
Yes, exactly. So to clarify, we have this new tab that is the book summary print version. So this particular tab is meant to be the printer-friendly version that you can print out to PDF and share it with an investor. Maybe you want to print it out to add to your loan origination system as a copy. And for this printout version, we're only including the excluded deposits. Most lenders that we spoke to mentioned that they don't necessarily want to share their whole secret sauce of every single transaction that was reviewed in this loan across the 12 to 24 month statements. Maybe you don't want to share all hundreds of transactions with your investor. But those that we spoke to did mention that it would be nice to have an excluded deposit section so that they could include that, since those are the ones that are more irregular, that you would need to explain why you excluded it from the income formula.
One additional question, or actually two questions. Can you exclude a certain bank statement? And if so, how would you do that? As well, if you wanted to update or add a bank statement.
Yes, good question. So you always have the ability to add extra bank statements to the book. So if later on you've processed maybe 10 bank statements and you realized through the feature of the missing statement that you were missing two consecutive statements, you can upload those at a later time. They will process and they will become available to include in the bank statement output. Today, there is not a great way to, let's just say, look at one specific statement and say exclude this from the formula. However, you do have the ability to look up specific transactions that maybe started in a statement period. Let's say I want to exclude all of the transactions that were for the month of February, hit apply, and now I have the ability to kind of select, this is not for 2025, I apologize. But if I wanted to exclude all of the February transactions for 2024, I have that ability to do that here and bulk exclude. Now, we are actually introducing a feature enhancement based on client feedback that we received during beta to include which bank statements you want to have on the printout in an easier way. So right now you do have that control by just filtering out the specific transactions for that statement period. But very soon you will have the ability to exclude or include specific statements and include or exclude specific accounts that you may want to exclude from the printout. So if I want to include Chase but not Wells Fargo, for example, you'll have that ability to control that very soon. That should be an enhancement coming out.
Excellent. And then one last question I see here, and if you have any more questions, please submit those to the Q&A. For reviewing the pre-existing version or the version before, for folks that are getting comfortable with the new version, are they able to download that old version as well?
They are, yes. So here within the export, you will see that there is still access to the legacy version of the bank statement income calculator. We do realize that this is a bit of a change for your team, and we want to support your team in rolling this out and driving wider adoption across your team. So please reach out to us. We're happy to support and provide, as Craig mentioned, user guides and tooltips on how to best utilize this new feature. But we do believe that the new income calculator has most of what was missing and or inefficient about the previous version. And we're excited to roll it out, and we're excited to continue to enhance it as we receive client feedback.
Wonderful. I don't see any other questions coming through. If you do, actually, we just got one. How can you easily search a transaction amount, i.e., trying to find rent payments that have a set dollar amount?
Yes, good question. So you do have the ability to actually search by amount. This is one of the columns where you can look for specific transactions. So if you know that it's a debit or a credit transaction, I can actually look up all debits, I can look up all credits. Or if you want to look at a specific amount, you do have that ability. So you can use the equals operator, greater than, less than, greater than, equal, greater than or equal to. So let's say, for example, it was a payment that was always 1,500, or it was a rent payment. You can actually just enter that value here and it will bring up that specific amount. For rent payments as well, I do believe we have existing transaction tags for certain payments that you can leverage to look up recurring payments as well. So this is certainly used to help identify perhaps undisclosed debts, for example, where it's a recurring payment that may not have existed on the credit report that you want to dig into and get a letter of explanation for. So while we've mostly been talking about the bank statement income calculator for use in a non-QM mortgage underwrite, I do believe that this bank statement transactions page could be leveraged in several QM instances as well. You do have to look at least in most programs, 60 days of transactions. So instead of having an underwriter manually review every single transaction, looking for those irregular deposits or those anomalies, perhaps those recurring payments that were missing from the credit report, this is a great place to start.
Absolutely. And we also have the counterparty. So if you were looking for a specific company, you can also search there.
Correct.
So it looks like we're just about at time. If you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us or your account manager. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Becca, for walking us through the bank statement income calculator. I hope you will all join us at next month's Product Pulse. Thank you so much.